to swear for hours about.
Oops. Okay. We are live. And here we go.
Eyes wide open. Hans Utter investigates your home for everything under the sun. True crime, hidden history of music, lifestyle, current events, esoteric, parapsychology, just about whatever the heck we choose to talk about. Sit back and enjoy the show. HansUtter.com. Check out conspiracytriviagame.com, promo code Hans12. Enjoy the show.
Everybody, welcome back to Eyes Wide Open. Hans Utter investigates. So that's a trailer. Actually, it's some footage when I was just in India, and that's one of the albums on my record label that I'm on. But it's great to be here, and William Ramsey, who I did the first show with, and in fact, I'll just give a shout out to William, for being very helpful, kind of getting into this particular game or this just a broadcast. And as I was telling William the other day, if you're going to do something, do it right or don't do it. So trying to do it right, and we have a extremely interesting topic about Catcher in the Rye by Mr. J.D. Salinger. And before we dive into William, I'll just say a few things about this. So in my high school, everybody had to read Catcher in the Rye. In fact, the entire school system, and my son actually had to read it, a number of years later. And it's something that becomes encoded almost, especially at that transition, adolescence, puberty, and I don't think people really think about some of the impact potentially of this type of literature. And there's a few other books which people probably don't know that we had to read. One of them was a book called Go Ask Alice, which is ostensibly the journal of a girl who basically loses her mind from taking LSD and becomes like insane. And another one was Lord of the Flies, which is our wonderful reference to survival of the fittest with Beelzebub, the Lord of the Flies, that the demonic entity that some people worship and some people do not like. But anyways, we're reading this book, and then also Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, which has a lot of things about early sexuality. This is, of course, long before the whole agenda that I'm sure now it's really extreme. But all these books have different types of messages. Obviously, Lord of the Flies is about violence. It's about human nature is basically we are violent, and once you take away the veneer of civilization, we're going to kill each other. And then Go Ask Alice is one of those anti-drug books that pushes people to take drugs. In fact, I had one of my teachers when I read that book was talking about, have you guys taken LSD? He was literally encouraging us in the high school to take LSD, saying how great it is.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And then, of course, so that's drug use and then sexuality. But what we're going to talk about today is Catcher in the Rye, which, unlike those three other books that I mentioned, Catcher in the Rye has a very unique footprint across American culture and history. And there's a lot of unanswered questions regarding the book. And well, I'll just let William come on up. William, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me back. Good to be with you.
Excellent. Yeah. So what made you decide to do this topic?
Well, my research kind of started last year in March 2024. I kind of was looking into somebody, we were talking online on social media about Chapman. I had done interviewed a guy who did a thing about a book about the death of Lenin. So I was very familiar with Chapman. He said somebody contested some of my research and said, "Oh, the Catcher in the Rye wasn't as is impactful on Chapman as you're saying." So I had to go back and go look at the literature. So I did a show about Catchers in the Rye, and then I kind of I was like, oh wow, I know a lot. There's a lot of ties in Catcher in the Rye to modern cultural history, then assassinations, and it's kind of happening with this Trump stuff. Ties in with some of these characters. And so I was just kind of researching, and then I did a show about it and read the book and was astonished. So like you, I was reading it in high school, had no clue what was going on. Like I just thought it was like we were talking in the pre-show. Thought it was a boring book about a guy in New York City. I didn't pick up on things. Now at my age, 56, where I've done a lot of research on the modern history and many shows with you, as a matter of fact, MK Ultra for the Masses and the Grateful Dead and culture creation, and even our kind of psychopolitics, most recent episodes. And this book ties into all of that. Like, it's really incredible. You got to figure this 19 million books of Catcher in the Rye have been sold. This isn't like, like my books, which barely sell at all compared to this. This is like a huge cultural landmark in 1951 and promoted too. Like, why is this book promoted? There's a lot of big questions. Questions about Salinger, and then questions about why are these guys carrying around. What I proved, I kind of should finish that. What I proved in my research about Chapman is that Catcher in the Rye was central to his worldview, and he had kind of melded into the character of Holden Caulfield, who was the main character of Catcher in the Rye. And so my research into it just like opened up kind of American culture creation. And so many people, like I did the recent shows on the Beatles, who I'm now convinced, like I didn't know this when I was a kid. I love their music. Total culture creation. They didn't write probably any of their songs, which kind of strangely ties into this, as Lennon was killed by Chapman, supposedly. I don't even think Chapman shot him, but that's part of the story. But he was killed in 1980 at the Dakota in New York City, which strangely overlaps with this book that takes place in New York City. And even the main character, we can talk about the book in detail maybe to get started, but he literally, I'm just writing it in my notes. I've lived in New York for all my life. I know Central Park like the back of my hand. And literally Dakota's right on Central Park in Manhattan. But yeah, Chapman literally carried the book into court 8 months later and made these strange statements in court about the book, and literally promoted the book in a weird way. Like, hey, everybody should read Catcher in the Rye. Why is this insistence on there? Why are certain people saying this? There's even a rumor that Oswald, among his literature, Catcher in the Rye, there, I have not confirmed that. If anybody can confirm that, send that to me, please. When they went through Oswald stuff in 1963, which would be really astonishing.
Yeah, I just want to bring that up, is that now some of this, there's, you don't know if it's disinformation or whatever, but supposedly both Reagan and John F. Kennedy were obsessed with the book Catcher in the Rye as well.
Wow.
And then Oswald, and I don't think, not Sirhan, but Oswald supposedly was also reading Catcher in the Rye, and the thing
and
is,
Hinckley, don't forget Hinckley.
Well, no, I'm saying I'm going back because everyone knows.
Okay.
Basically, there's three documented killings with Catcher in the Rye. The thing is, though, that if you look at Jolly West, who was programming a number of these assassins potentially, and like he went, visit Jack Ruby, and basically after that, Jack Ruby was completely just out of it, gone. Mind is gone.
He's insane. He's got schizophrenia or something. He determined it immediately or something.
Yeah, and so he did that, on several occasions. But it's quite possible that this book was indeed used as part of this these techniques, right? Because the search for the Manchurian Candidate, et cetera. But you go back to, after World War I. I mean, they were studying these hypnotic, couriers, et cetera. But anyways,
very early. So before, like, these are the obvious time things that we know. The topical thing of MK Ultra is 1953. Dulles comes out and gives his speech in Virginia about brain warfare. Very important date. And then a week later, MK Ultra starts, and it goes all over the United States. It's almost like a Manhattan Project, where they just manipulated all of these other already existing hospitals and colleges and added these kind of elements to it, and even all the way up in Canada with you and Cameron. But so that's an important date. But before that, they were, like you said, they were research. There was a guy by the name of Morse Allen, who's clearly researching all the stuff. And Esther Brooks literally was writing his books in 35. So like there's like time dates in the 30s that he was working on. So people who think 1951 may be a little bit too early may not know what led up to 53, because they were, like you said, Jolly and West was studying the Manchurian Candidate, right? So the Manchurian Candidate were these guys coming back from Korea and supposedly got mind warped. So he was studying all that stuff, like PTSD after troops came back in 45, and a lot of these troops. So Jollywood West is around there, and there's other characters around there before even like the poisoner in chief Gottlieb. So the putting this book in that historical context, I think, is important, because to my knowledge, they haven't answered a lot of questions about how this book suddenly materialized and why it became popularized. And I think there's something more to the story, because it's really an incredible book. It deals with dissociation. It deals with so many different psychological states, and this main character who's supposed to be seen as a hero, he's a monster. Holden Caulfield is a monster. And some of the research is this I've read. So it led me to kind of researching Joe Atwell. We were talking about that in the pre-show. And he's done a couple papers. One is about pedophilia in this book, and the other one is about masonry. So he sees masonry involved in this, which my reading, I didn't. But he's also been on a number of shows talking about it from his angle, like the Masonic angle of this. But there's something even more profound than that. So
yeah, well, and one thing just to tie this in too, because you have, so as I mentioned, the fact that you're reading this in high school. Okay, it was published in 51, which actually was a really good time in America. But during that time, you have, Asphalt Jungle, you have, Marlon Brando, et cetera. They're promoting this idea. You have West Side Story promoting this idea of the alienated teenager, right? And in fact, this is sort of where the teenager is being created as a separate teenager, adolescent, et cetera, is being created as a separate sort of entity. But they're really promoting this sense of, like, the existing order is messed up, but really a kind of a fruitless, egotistical wandering in the morass of one's own mind, which you find, of course, in the 1960s with the whole drug culture. But we see that it started there. But the odd history of this book, and Dakota, was that not in Rosemary's Baby, or is that the Chelsea?
Rosemary's Baby is the Dakota, yes.
Yeah. So Dakota, so Rosemary's Baby is another very important, we're not going to go too far afield, but, John Lennon being killed there, of course, Tate murders, Manson. So you can see all of these sort of threads, being pulled together. But, how about, I have not read the book for quite a long time. I did, my son was reading in high school. I kind of looked through it, and what I thought was, this is as you said, it's a very dark book. It's a very odd book. It's a very pointless book. And Holden Caulfield is, he's obviously a very unreliable narrator, but what was I assume you've read it recently. So give me your feelings about the book when you read it.
How strange he is, Holden Caulfield, right? And I think even the name, like when you realize the book, the names that are in the book are very important. They have meaning. They're not random. So a call is basically like when a baby is birthed, there's a call in the kind of placenta or something. Sometimes it gets attached over a face in history that was seen as somebody who would have kind of second sight or something like that. So I think the name is very important. Caulfield, second sight field, catcher in the rye field, right? So you're seeing these are very complex overlaying concepts in the book. And Holden may have other meanings like hold on to the Caulfield, whatever. But one of the things that it's an internal dialogue of Holden Caulfield most of the time. He's interrelating with other people, but he also what's really incredible is how there's so many concepts that start off at the beginning. This theme of transformation. So he's kind of transforming all the time. He's grown recently. He's skinny. He's 16, which you realize. There's this kind of idea of games where life is a game, which is actually a very, believe it or not, it's a theme within cults. Like they see like you're playing a game, or the famous statement of Joe Pesci and JFK. It's a game. It's all a game to these guys, this intel guys, right? He says that when he says, it's a riddle inside an enigma. He's playing David Ferry. But this kind of gamesmanship is an immediate concept that's dropped right at the very beginning of Catcher in the Rye. And also this dissociative state, like Holden Caulfield is not an even-keeled person. He does weird things. He attacked somebody without provocation, one of his buddies, who he thinks he's friends with, who he also doesn't like. And there's also this thing of he's in psychoanalysis, been in psychoanalysis since he was the age of 13. So this isn't kind of like an alienated kid, like this, like kind of, he is alienated, but there's more to it, right? So he's in the care of a psychiatrist and has been from a very young age, and he's lashed out. He's like broken windows. He says he broke all these windows. His brother had died of leukemia. He had an older brother who's kind of like the star of the family, and then his younger sister Phoebe, who he idolizes a little bit too much. He says he was a little too affectionate to her. So these themes are in there. Like that pedophilia theme isn't a joke, it's for real. So those are kind of the intro, but it just goes on. He's schizophrenic. There's hints of sexual abuse for him. He wakes up on like his headmaster's couch, and the headmaster has his hand on his head or something. Like there's, and he talks about a split brain on page 13. He's going through a phase. There's repetitive phraseology, which is really kind of strange in a book. He goes, you will, you will, you will. Page 19, like it's almost like somebody's psychically driving him. One of the more important things, which is also in the graphic design of the book, is he wears a human hunting hat, this red cap, which is reflected in the red cover of the book. So you see most of like the most modern versions are a red book. So red is a theme, and he puts on his human hunting cap and walks around and chain smokes and thinks to himself, he's crazy. He's like, really, I mean, it's really something else.
Well, and those are all like really great points. And again, it is really a rich book. And I may bring up a little bit more about Salinger's background coming up, but just some of these points. So, what I'm reminded of, time and time again is like, for example, Freud was studying neurobiology, neurochemistry, neurosurgery before that. So there was a lot of advances in these things. You can go all the way back to Mesmer, hypnotic stuff. So a lot of these things, some of this research, you realize, well, there was stuff in the 1880s, 1890s that was pretty advanced. They had electric cars that work better than our current electric cars back, before the turn of the 20th century. But one of the things this reminds me of is Kurt Lewin's work on psychological topology, right? So, and this is about generating types of influence patterns that create sort of groupings, right? We'll get into that in too much detail. But another thing, we look at the mental hygiene programs, they're promoting this type of inner awareness where you're literally these are called interjects, where you're actually physically talking to yourself. Okay. And this is shown as your regular consciousness, right? So it's this inner dialogue, and even all these, positive thinking. This is a particular type of thought, but literally when you do that, your tongue is moving, right? And this is a lot of times this is used for it creates dissociative states where you split into two separate, three separate. You're having an inner conversation, and you're literally physically talking to yourself. Your speech centers are active, your tongue muscles are tightening. And before I dive into it, I just wanted to read the poem that this was based on. I think it's just a little bit interesting. I don't know. See if this is going to work here. Let's see, here we are. Yeah. So this is a poem by Robert Burns. And I'll just go through this. Robert Burns, of course, was a lyric poet. I guess this was a song. So I'll just read this. Coming through the rye, poor body, coming through the rye. She draggleth in her petticoat, coming through the rye. Oh, Jenny's a sweet poor body. Jenny's a seldom cry. She draggleth her petticoat, coming through the rye. Now, just does that not sound a little bit like a rape, maybe?
Yeah, there's like keep reading it. It gets worse, I think.
Yeah. Gin a body, meat a body. And so for those who are just listening, gin, like to drink gin. Obviously, he's getting that sort of country pronunciation with his diction, but he wrote gin. Gin a body, meat a body, coming through the rye. Gin a body, kiss a body, need a body cry. Oh, Jenny's a sweet and sea. I'm not sure what that even means. Jenny's a sweet and sea, period. Jenny's a wheat and sea. Oh, Jenny's a wait and see. So, okay. Gin a body, meet a body, coming through the glen. Gin a body, kiss a body, need the wild ken. Oh, Jenny's a wheat and sea. Gin a body, meet a body, coming through the rye. Gin a body, kiss a body, need a body cry. I like a body, has a body. Nera a hain hey I. But the lads, they low me, and what the war am I? Gin a body, meet a body, come and fray the well. Gin a body, kiss a body, need a body tell. I like a body, has a body. Nera nay I. But all the lads, they low me.
Right. They love me, right? And want
they love
what
me.
I am.
They love me.
Yeah.
And war am I? Gin a body, meet a body, come and fray the town. Gin a body, kiss a body, need a body gloom. I like a Jenny has her jockey. Ne'er a hang high. I guess have I. You know what that?
Yeah.
Can you translate?
It's just old English, but I mean it's ain have I guess.
Ain't
I mean,
have
low
I.
is love and war is want. So
But
the
all
lads, they love me and they want what I am, right?
But it's kind of odd because you're shifting. You can see even in this this poem, you can see it's sort of if Jenny is the lady, she's dissociating from herself, right? Yeah, she's dissociating. She's looking at this and that, and she's like almost watching herself from outside. Her petticoat is hanging, and then and obviously some kind of sexual relationship, which to me it sounds like a rape and a dissociation after a rape potentially.
It's not like a love poem.
No,
like a sexually charged poem. So, and that's a core central element of this whole book is this Robert Burns, and it is incredible. There is this sequence where he's with Phoebe, his 10-year-old. He really likes her. He says strange things. He also pinches her on the behind. Like he's very close and affectionate with her, which is a bit disturbing. But like she's a central figure too. But one of the things about this character and the way that she's written is Phoebe almost talks like an adult. So it's almost that kind of like I got the sense of like she corrects him. She corrects Holden. Like she knows Robert Burns. You have a 10-year-old kid who's talking to Holden who knows Robert Burns in the actual rhyme because Holden, like he does everything else, he's misinterpreting all of these things. He misinterprets tells from other people, like he's that messed up. So they're kind of like you're watching him talk and like somebody's saying, stop shouting at me. And he goes, I'm not shouting. So the other person has the impression that Holden's shouting. And so he's misinterpreted this as a catcher in the rye. It's not in the Robert Burns poem. And she corrects him. Phoebe corrects him at the end. She goes, what does she say? if a body catch a body coming through rye. So she knows the Robert Burns poem, and she says to Holden, it's if a body meet a body coming through the rye. It's a poem by Robert Burns. And then there's this common theme of crazy and madman. And he's like, oh, I know it's crazy. He says that in response to Phoebe. And like another repetitive phrase in there is, I'm a madman. He says that to himself, about himself all the time. It's really great. And he's suicidal. I mean, it's just something else. But yeah, so this poem is a very important, and I think the impact on the reader is this is a profound book, profound cultural meaning, but the impact on the reader is like, you're going to misinterpret some stuff in this book because Catcher in the Rye isn't the real poem. And it's almost like it's inducing you to misinterpret things. Like it's not a clear thing. And the other thing, when he's talking to Phoebe, he flips in and out of conversations. It's incredible the way that it's written. Like, it's so sophisticated. Salinger was like 32 or 33 at the time, but he's talking to Phoebe, and then he goes off on this long tangent about how his old roommates and all this stuff, and Bob would drop things and all this, and then pops back and starts talking to Phoebe again. It's incredible. So he's dissociative. He's not even keeled at all. So the psychological states, he's having incredibly different psychological states, and sometimes they're not overtly explained to you, right? So it's like you have to kind of read through it and go, oh, wow, Holden's a big mess. He's a total mess. I mean, you're muted. Yeah, so it's incredible. I don't know why you're there.
Yeah, and no, I was letting you, because I get inspired by what you're saying, and I want to make sure I don't interrupt. So that's why muting. But it's, and I really want to stress that this. So we have some references. So what he's conflating this, right? And it just says Jenny's a wet all the time, right? Jenny's wet all the time. I'm not sure what that means, but I guess we could come up with some interpretation. But what does the catcher come from? You've got the Pied Piper, and then you've got the child catcher in the Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, right? So,
and also Atwill makes the claim that catcher is actually a scythe, so like it's a scythe in the rye. So like that's what you do when you go out and shear wheat or whatever, is the scythe in the rye. So it's actually a dark kind of implication. So the one who carries the scythe is death, right? That's the Grim Reaper, or the Saturn has a scythe, right? So there's, and that sickle, right, is hammer and sickle, the scythe of the communist who killed 150 million people in the last 120 years, 150 years. So it's a dark connotation. And the catcher is also like the child. That's the focus on the child. So you have this kind of pedophilia. And Holden is crazy. Like, he says, I'm going to kill people. I'm going to kill myself. Like, it's off the charts. I mean, the kind of stuff that he says. Well, and then it's implied. Like, then it's also so weird. He makes random calls all the time. Like, maybe that was the culture back then, is you just called your buddies or called your girlfriend and have them meet you. But like, he calls his like old friends, his old girlfriend, his professor, Mr. Antolini, and shows up. And Antolini says to him this, get this, something tells me what's going to happen to you is you're going to die nobly for an unworthy cause. Yeah. So it's almost like these guys, this mentality of these programmed assassins ties into this book. And there is a, I mean, it's unbelievable, but there is a rumor somewhere that George H.W. Bush, who would have been the beneficiary of Hinckley killed Reagan, right? Because he was vice president. He somewhere said that it was Catcher in the Rye was one of his favorite books.
Well,
and if you understand the history, you'll understand the potency and the incredibly profound meaning that is.
Yeah, no, and I just I want to stress this, that so literature, arts, especially at sensitive points, right? This is how you create a cohesive culture. You have examples of heroic people of great intellect, people of great compassion, people of great ability, but also this is like one of those transitional, right? I would read it, adolescent phase, little bit younger, maybe 14, 15, 8 years old. You read it in high school. Holden Caulfield is giving you, because these are transitional phases. Of course, there's going to be some discomfort, when you go through transitional phases in life.
Right.
But he's giving a modeling of how your inner consciousness is supposed to be. You're supposed to be talking to yourself in your head all the time. You're not aware of how you have
Your
no
perceptions, yeah.
perception.
How other people perceive you doesn't matter as much.
Yeah.
Holden Caulfield is totally, he doesn't respond to other people's pleadings. That's the whole thing. It's like weird. Like that's the whole thing. That's why he's under the care of a psychologist. That's why he's flunked out of multiple schools, and his dad's going to kill him and all this stuff. It's incredible. It's off the charts. And there's also another sequel. Like there's these names I think are important. He goes to the Wicker Bar. And if you've heard like the Wicker Man and all this, so like it ties into this whole other thing I was just talking about, the scythe, the catcher, the sickle. The Wicker Bar is where you like take a body from old history and burn it as a sacrifice. You can see the Wicker Man or whatever. But he runs into this guy Luce. And it's an interesting choice of a name because the Luce family is like really one of the kind of elite families of the Gilded Age, right? So the time, back when magazines were much more important, like Time, Life, and all this stuff, the Luce family, Skull and Bones, and they're just a whole nother show in itself, just the Luce family, because they were the ones who helped cover it up. Well, it came out of Time Life as the one who bought the Zapruder film, right? Kept it from the public. But it is interesting. Luce shows up at this bar, and Holden's like, this guy knows everything about sex. So he's a sexologist, and it's almost like he's like, Luce is like knowledgeable about gays, and Luce is like this person who says half of married guys are gay, which is not true. But this kind of impact of him saying that almost like coincides with the Kinsey stuff, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like this is getting put into the culture. This book is an incredible cultural creation device that is very dark. And I didn't understand it when I first read it. Now at my age, I'm like, this is freaking crazy. It's also anti-Christian. So from a Christian perspective, like people may not pick up on what he says, but this guy is dark, man. He thought all of the apostles suck. He hates everything. He says he hates everything in page 169. He says that. And then he says, I swear to God, I'm a madman in page 174. And this whole thing of psychological theme of madness goes through the whole thing, and it's presented to you through the narrative. But he also says, the apostles I have contempt for. I got to get the exact thing. But then he says, the only person I admire was the lunatic who Christ drove out all the demons from. That's who he admires. And if you know kind of your Bible, you'll know that Christ went out to this guy who had multiple demons, Legion. So this is a reference to Legion. And Christ released these demons from this man who couldn't be restrained. He was just totally crazy. I mean, you can read. I have to get the section of the Bible. Christ relieved him from the demons, and the demons went into a herd of pigs, and the pigs killed themselves and rushed into water. Like that's one important. So that's who Holden sympathizes with. And there's another sequence where they're debating whether Judas actually goes to hell. Judas is the great betrayer of Christ.
I remember that. Yeah.
So they're talking about that. And I mean, there's another, Jesus would have puked at this, he talks about that. And it is interesting. I mean, it's just like there's overlapping kind of stuff that he's also a snob. So his dad is a corporate lawyer, and he gets really obsessed with these cheap suitcases. He feels sad and depressed by things that would not make the normal person sad or depressed. So like he gets depressed when he sees a cheap suitcase, which is weird. Like this is what's throwing you off the edge. Like things that the normal person hopefully wouldn't find, maybe it's a memento or something important, a loved one, but things that you wouldn't find kind of disturbing, he finds disturbing and throws them around. Like now I feel even more depressed. Depressing bourgeois pens, So that's another thing. Like they even mentioned, he uses the word bourgeois. So it's like, he has a good vocabulary, but it's like he can't ever apply himself because he's out of his mind. He's out of his mind. It's just the craziest book, man. It's on, and there's like sequences in page 230, but this repeated phrase digression. Like I'm always digressing. I digress. This is a digression. So you're being put into this. You're being exposed to these concepts throughout the whole book in a very sophisticated way. It's great. It's amazing. Like it's amazing to think that every school child in the U.S., like you said, culture creation, that every school child is exposed to this. It's dark, psychologically super dark for me.
Well, and this, I mean, we can see this like for the shows, for example, we did on Trump derangement syndrome. I mean, this type of, creation of individual inner consciousness, right? This imposing this map or a model, right? Just like with Freud's stuff, everyone thinks, you have all these repressed things. And that psychotherapist, what do? You just sit there and talk about your problems all the time. And so it just like Holden Caulfield, you're creating a sense of self-importance. And then you're like amping up your little small discongruities in life. And yet you're living in this inner, it's basically, you're just in your own shell. You're in your own room full of mirrors but you don't care because you think it's great. And one thing this ties in with, again, around the same time, is this concept of self-esteem. Right. And so people don't really know this comes from, Maslow's hierarchy and all that. But and I've done some shows in the past about this, that self hyphen. Right. This is based on a fundamentally dissociative state. Self-esteem. What it means is how much you like yourself based on how much you think other people like you. Right. So I'm thinking they like me or not. And then I'm going to cogitate on that. Then I'm going to reflect that back on my other self. And then I'm going to be happy or not happy. So you think self-esteem is sort of an integrated state. It's not. It's a refraction of a refraction. Right. So you know what I mean? So it creates this inner divide, this sort of inner dialogue or consciousness. And so I think especially at these primed locations of someone's development, you can really encode stuff in their mind. And, I think in the 50s, it's maybe trying to foment the adolescent, disenfranchisation. If you look in the 80s, 90s, I mean, we have a much more society that is quite an alienated, disturbed culture and society.
No question.
And so in that way, you're going to take, you're going to identify with Holden Caulfield as some kind of a hero. Oh, even subconsciously, the teachers want me to read this.
Right. I think that's the impact. That's the interesting thing that I find reading this is like, how did this guy get a hero or anti-hero patina? Or how did that done? I don't see him heroic at all. He's not heroic. He is a mess. He's a sociopath. He can lie for hours. He says that to like in his internal dialogues. So he's actually kind of reading this book is encouraging you to emulate Holden Caulfield, who wears a murder hat, is schizo, and says like a madman over and over again, and uses the word trance. Like, I'm in a trance on page 73. Like in 1951, they had it down. How does the writer even put that in there? Give me a break. Like, the more you analyze this, the darker and more tied into culture creation it comes in my mind. Like, it's often like the birds and stuff. Like, he doesn't understand things too. He's like, where do the ducks go when the pond freezes? Like, where do the ducks go? So he doesn't understand, like, the ducks fly south and north for the winter or wherever. They go to where it's warm. Like, he doesn't understand that. He keeps asking, where do you think the ducks go? So he's going to see where the ducks are at Central Park. Like, it's weird. Like, it's really crazy. He's fascinated and scared by blood. So he's fascinated by blood. This is dark topics. He keeps saying, once a rat, always a rat. Very negative. He says he might have a brain tumor. So that pops up. He says, capable of lying for hours. Like, there's a sequence when he's on the train with like one of his school friends' moms. He just completely baloneying her, uses a fake name, says your son is really great, and like talks her up. And it's just incredible. incredible stuff, man. And one time, like, he like makes these phone calls, like he's trying to contact people. And like after he's done making his phone calls, he just sat in the phone booth for 20 minutes. Like, that's weird too. So like he does all these like strange things that don't make sense. So he doesn't make sense. And that's what they're encouraging. Like Holden Caulfield, like become a scatterbrained, you know, dissociative whack job. Like,
Well, then also, this there's a lot interesting in this, and I want to. We'll get to you let me know when you want to put the PowerPoint up. But the other thing is, you mentioned phony. He calls everybody's a phony, yet he himself is a complete liar.
Yeah, exactly.
And so everything is phony, and then it's like, and everything is about him. The whole world revolves around the son.
It really does.
Holden Caulfield.
Yeah.
And one other thing which ties into a lot of the research done by Pavlov and Luria, some of it related to the idea of schismogenesis, generating schizophrenia in dogs and then in little children. But one of the things was using types of parallel messaging to create this sort of inner, and a lot of this is done through music, even through, sleepy time songs for kids. I've talked about this, where you get like sort of your arousal and rest. You could say parasympathetic, sympathetic nervous systems firing both at the same time. You're imprinting this idea of disease, right? So you have a little bit of a ache or a pain. I may have this disease. I may have that,
right.
And so this is also something that's literally been inculcated. And again, we can see the fruits. By their fruits you shall know them, right? Look at our modern world right now, right?
Dude, the whole generation of my kids' generation, they're all what's the word where you're always afraid of, like, you're sick or something, or they're all psychologically messed up. A lot of them, anxiety, I think it's because it's been created. But what is it when you're always afraid that you're sick? When you're what's the word?
You know what? I don't know why.
Anyway.
There's a word for that. Like, people have that, and there's also people that actually will induce conditions,
right.
And then there's the other one where they'll induce it in their children.
Right. That's von Munchausen
syndrome. Yeah. And this is like a third grade word. Holden Caulfield has a better, a better vocabulary than we do, right? But
at least when he's writing and talking, Holden Caulfield has a good vocabulary. There's no question.
But
he's also, one of the other elements of him is he's kind of a trickster. So you see that trickster kind of theme with him, kind of a Joker theme in a lot of ways, which is also kind of like a darker element, like a chaos magician. There's that piece of thing, and he always thinks, like you said, that egotism is really important. I think important element where he says everybody's fake, but he's fake. Like you said, he never acknowledges. He says maybe sometimes, but he also uses these fake names. One chapter ends on page 114. He says, people are always ruining things for you. So everybody else is to blame. It's not his decision to get Fs at school or misuse his dad's money. He just blows through his dad's money. So he doesn't seem to have a job, But it's another thing. He also says he's a sex maniac in his mind. So he's actually kind of like, this is another thing that's another theme, is these guys are sexually frustrated, and he is. So he says he's a sex maniac in my mind. He's almost like always upset. He's interested in other people talking about their sex lives, or he's thinking about their sex lives. So one of his guys is talking about girls in cars and whether they did the deed together. So he's thinking about that. But then he goes to a hotel in New York City, and the bell guy in the elevator hooks him up with a prostitute. And then it's not like, okay, I'll pay for the prostitute, $5 or whatever, but he doesn't complete the act. So there's an available girl there that he seems to like her dress or something, like she has a green dress, but he just starts talking and fumbles. And so he's like a terminally sexually frustrated kid, 16 or something, but it's also sex obsessed. So maybe that's something that is typical for that age, but it's reflected in Holden Caulfield. So that's another theme that's in this, is like, he's like, there's nothing redeeming about him. Like, he's not an intellectual. He knows what an intellectual is. He's not an athlete. He's not a ladies' man. It's just like he has these weird relationships with his roommates and stuff. He talks crap about them all the time, but then he says he misses them sometimes. I mean, it's really something else. This book is really crazy.
Yeah, and other thing though, Holden Caulfield, like he's from a wealthy family, right? He's from money. He's not some guy trying to survive on the street. And the relationship with his sister, if he's 16 and she's like 10,
yeah, she's 10.
That's child molestation, right? And then people that have this intense sexual desire but aren't able to fulfill it, a lot of these people end up being rapists, serial killers, whatever, right? It's one of the
or a pedophile, right? So
pedophile,
misdirecting his sex life into terrible things. So that's like an interesting point. That's a really interesting point about this. Like that's how the depth of the book is, That's like it. And this dissociation or this kind of floating over reality is a theme in this whole book, and it ends the book like the way it ends. Maybe, anticlimactic to some people, but if you're looking this as like culture creation and psychological states, it's really profound because he says about this whole narrative that he's talking about. This is like 276 at the very end of the book. DB's older brother. DB asked me what I thought about all the stuff I just telling you about. So he breaks like the wall of like the consciousness. So he's telling you like this whole narrative is really for the reader, right? So like it's not just you're watching him. He's telling you at the very end. This is really something. I think they call it breaking the fourth wall, where they start talking to the audience. He's talking to you, so he's broken the fourth wall, which is really profound. Like why would somebody like Salinger know how to do this? DB asked me what I thought about all the stuff I finished telling you about. I didn't know what the hell to say. If you want to know the truth, I don't know what I think about it. I'm sorry I told so many people about it. Why would he say that?
Read that again. Can you go back just a little bit before there?
Sure.
Just read that last bit. Go back.
DB asked me what I thought about all this stuff I just finished telling you about.
So this is where this is very, there's like a lot of like Lucas and a lot of these Marxist theorists, they looked at the novel as consciousness, right? As representing the consciousness of a particular era, right? So he's stepping out like that's, and this is the only place this happens in the book, right? Where he steps out.
I don't remember anywhere else.
That's really,
I may have to reread it, but it is weird that he just breaks the wall.
Telling you about it, but in a certain way, this also is not like breaking the wall. It's also implanted him into your mind. So he's yourself talking to yourself. So go ahead. Yeah. So
no, I'm telling you, like a lot of commentators wouldn't key into this. Like I was shocked, like reading about it. Like what? Like he breaks the fourth wall, and then like he says, I don't know what I think about it. So like he doesn't have any circumspection to look at his own thoughts and actions, which is really also weird. Like, oh, I had a great time, or I had a blast, or I had a learning experience. Oh, I really made a mistake, and I don't want to make that mistake again. It's like, no, you don't know what to think of. DB, his older brother, asked him what I thought about all this stuff I just finished telling you about. I didn't know what the hell to say. If you want to know that he's been talking the whole time, didn't know what the hell to say. If you want to know the truth, I don't know, and know is italicized, which is also interesting. I don't know what I think about it. I'm sorry I told so many people about it.
About what though? The whole story?
All I know is I sort of miss everybody I told about, even old Stradlater and Ackley. Those are his roommates at Pensy or whatever. For instance, I think I even missed that goddamn Maurice. That's the pimp. It's funny. Don't ever tell anybody anything. If you do, you'll start missing everybody.
What?
That's the end. Finney.
Wow. That's bizarre.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very,
this book is disturbing as hell, man.
Yeah.
Like, the more I read it, I'm like, you're giving this to young kids who, like, some freaking group of Satanists or something devised this. I don't even know what it's crazy.
Well, and again, the purpose. Okay, there's entertainment, but this is education. So people used to read the classics. You learn Latin. You read about Homer. You read about, whatever, these,
Last
Shakespeare,
Mohican, Shakespeare.
David
Shakespeare's,
Copperfield.
it's interesting you mentioned that because some of these classics are included in this and they're discounted. So he knows Romeo, Juliet. He knows Shakespeare. It's weird. It's weird. So they're mentioned. Burns is mentioned. Like his sister knows Robert Burns, a 10-year-old sister. It's so weird.
Well,
and it's also kind of weird because I don't know if I mentioned this, but like she talks like she's an adult. She doesn't talk like she's like the way that he's interpreting her is almost like she's older and smarter. It's weird. Like she doesn't use kid terms. She's aware of other stuff like dad's gonna kill you. What are you doing here? And she's almost kind of a liar like him because he smokes a cigarette in her room, and then her mom comes home and she's like, "Oh, I just wanted to see what what the smoking was like." And mom's always nervous or whatever. I mean, it's
they're promoting smoking also, and one thing just to underscore this is they're using a lot of very advanced literary techniques like James Joyce, Ulysses and stuff, but in very subtle ways and very, like someone who really has studied these particular types of rules. And it's, within the context of the book, it doesn't, because it's not, it's not like a deep, per se, on the surface, it's not really particularly a deep book.
Right. I think that's the perception. It's incredibly profound, dude. Wow. It's something else. Like this book is crazy smart. Like you said, sophisticated literary techniques. Why does he break the fourth wall at the end? That's like a thing that also, like you said, it just goes into your brain. I don't know about what happened about the things I'm telling you about. He's not talking to his brother. He's talking to the reader.
But notice the things he's talking about people and then things. So, you know what I mean? Are the people things? You know what I mean? Like he juxtaposes matter, event, relationship, and it's just very distorted.
Yeah, distorted. His reality is he's distorting reality all the time, constantly. He's also a pyromaniac too, by the way. I forgot to mention that. So in addition to being like a sex maniac in his brain, he likes to take matches and let them, burn down to his fingers and put them out. So he does that to a whole matchbook. So he's got all of these things. I think they say like a rapist or a murderer has like 3 things that they all do in common: hurt animals, pyromania, and bedwetting. Like if you have those big 3, you're gonna, be a rapist or psychopath or something like that. I forgot what it was. So at least he has pyromania.
Yeah, well, maybe even rape. Who knows? But do you want me to throw up your PowerPoint?
Yeah, sure.
I took it down because it's kind of a disturbing picture. And so, who are we looking at here?
That is Mark David Chapman, guy who loved Catcher in the Rye. There's just absolutely no doubt about it. Like this guy was obsessed with the book and thought he was Holden Caulfield. So he must have read that last passage. Like I'm going to have to do like a psyche cleanse after talking about this, but like he must have read that last package and like absorbed Holden Caulfield into his brain.
And where's this? I'm going to change the slide here in a second because this guy is really disturbing looking.
Yeah, no, it's really crazy.
And picture.
He's like Holden Caulfield. His reality has been distorted for him.
So he's holding his finger to his temple, like a bullet through the head, or like I don't know. Where's the context of this photograph by any chance?
I wish I did. I don't. I just thought it was interesting because he's pointing to his brain. Like the cultists will do that too. Like, I have the secret knowledge, so maybe he's thinking something on that line. But it's interesting that you mentioned that, like a bullet to his head, because here's another one of a guy. These guys committed these shootings within like 3 months of each other. The Lennon and Reagan shooting. If you can bring up Hinckley.
Just go back or
no, if you look underneath StreamYard, you'll see these boxes, but there's a box there that says William and it's got a guy with a gun in his head.
Okay, yeah.
You just have to there you go. Yeah, so it's the same kind of theme.
And it's almost the same pose.
Look at
You
his
know,
face. Like it's like a totally not smiling, just like a
but almost like a beatific
yeah.
sort of tranced out gaze. So if we go back, I mean, it's remarkably analogous to this other photograph. I mean, see that? I mean, you have this sort of um, almost like a type of stupefaction, but then also like like a trance state where you have some kind of special knowledge. And we go back to this other one, very similar, same hand, same almost the same
Almost the
positioning,
same, yeah.
except for of course the arm is up and the finger is represented where the gun barrel is, right? But it's very,
And this is how
very
Taxi
weird,
Driver, if you remember Taxi Driver,
Mhm.
this is how Taxi Driver ends too. Remember Travis Bickle. This actually, believe it or not, Taxi Driver ties into all these kind of MK assassin types because Travis Bickle, when they wrote Taxi Driver, Al Pacino, right? So the very one famous movie, which ties Hinckley was obsessed with what's her face. What's the girl? This is like the Jodie Foster.
Oh yeah, Jodie Foster. Yeah, yeah.
So he had a this is mind blowing. Can't make this stuff up. He's obsessed with Jodie Foster, who I think in Taxi Driver, she's basically like 10 or 12, right? So she's kind of in the Phoebe role. He has Catcher in the Rye, Hinckley does. And then the character Travis Bickle, disaffected nihilist, has internal monologues, much like Holden Caulfield, right?
Mm-hmm.
In New York City,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like you cannot make this stuff up. He has this gun pose, but he's based on another killer, the guy who tried to kill Wallace. His name was Arthur Bremer. So Arthur Bremer who had these weird kind of diaries and stuff of questionable authenticity or authorship. Bremer was the basis, and this is easy knowledge to determine. Bremer was the basis for Travis Bickle in Taxi Driver, which has very eerie similarities to the narrative in Catcher in the Rye. He's trying to rescue her, right? So he's her Catcher in the Rye. He is Jodie Foster's Catcher in the Rye, and that's what I think Hinckley was. Like he had an obsession with Jodie Foster. He should just send her stuff. She was very disturbed by it. Like that's her claim to fame as being this idol. So Hinckley is almost kind of like Phoebe is in the role of Hinckley. And you'll see in my slides, there's a book that shows that Hinckley's walking around with the Catcher in the Rye when he's trying to kill Reagan or whatever. This is from still from the movie Conspiracy Theory. And if you go down
we can
to the other box, so there's another box that says that's the Catcher. There you go.
You receipt?
Yeah. Thank you.
Can you hear that?
Catch in the Rye.
Yeah, it is.
It's a classic.
Yeah.
Have you ever read it?
Yeah, I've never read it.
Never?
No, I haven't. I've never read it.
Catch.
I never.
Catcher in the Rye. So he's going to buy Catcher in the Rye with the classic red cover, right? So that's conspiracy. And so you'll see in this in the later slides, Chapman, on the day of the Lennon assassination, stopped into a bookstore and bought Catcher in the Rye.
Well, so again, in that movie, so you got your slide here, how the Catcher in the Rye is linked to JFK, John Lennon, Rebecca Schaefer. And yeah, the book, even the book cover with the red, that weird kind of off yellow, kind of like a sickly yellow font. So let's,
and the carousel, right? So the very last sequence in the book is Phoebe and Holden at the carousel spinning around in circles.
Wow. I just want to say, like, Taxi Driver is another one of those films. I remember even in college, just people would act out scenes from Taxi Driver. People would watch that movie over and over and over again.
Yep.
I never really liked it that much. I didn't think it was that good, but it's one of those films. It's like an iconic film, right? People were obsessed with that.
Absolutely. I think did it win Academy Award for something?
I
feel like it did. And Travis Bickle is a classic. Like he's a classic kind of anti-hero character, much like Holden Caulfield. He doesn't understand stuff. Like I think he takes this girl on the first date to go see porn. Porn. Remember that? Like,
yeah.
That's where he goes to the porn movie, and she's offended by it, and he's like, "What? What do you do? You know, like, what's your deal, man?"
And porn was illegal. This is for Deep Throat, right? So technically, it was illegal for the.
Something
I think it was because it was the Pawnbroker was the first movie that showed full nudity, and after the Pawnbroker, whatever that it was 66 something like that, and then yeah, so that would have been like what Times Square, one of those basically around all the drug when
right,
Times Square was like
exactly.
seedy. So yeah, I know that it was technically illegal. Like it wasn't, until that there was, of course, you had like the Catholic League of Decency, and they did a lot to do that. So, but okay, anyways, so this is like fascinating conspiracy theory too. Again, these are, films. It like I rewatched Men Who Stare at Goats, right? So that's a great, a cover up, right, of all these things that were going on, and just make it seem like they're just a bunch of flakes, right? And nothing was serious about this whatever biofield research and conspiracy theory. There's, of course, it's chock full of all these different, things, and this guy, of course, is a complete wacko, right? He's got the conspiracy theorist house, and everything,
Right.
The big board. You want me to hit the next slide?
Sure,
So
we can
what's
just go
this
through
next
some of the
slide?
slides. So
That's
this is featured in
The Shining,
The
right?
Shining, right, which I think was 1979 or 1980, which is really weird because it's right around the time of those two shootings of Lennon and Reagan, right, 3 months apart. But there's the red cover. She's casually reading it. The son, and there are themes of kind of like pedophilia in The Shining too. There's kind of weird hints that the abuse that the little kid who's dissociative, like there's all kinds of mind control elements in this film of going crazy and losing your mind and stuff like that. But there's the book right there. Kubrick gets credit for all this stuff, which he deserves credit for it. But whoever is informing him, or these like lectures they're talking about to put stuff in films, they're brilliant. So like, I'm sure he had the final say, but somebody he was around was very keyed into so many things, to put this into this film is really something else.
And we see like the color composition, right? You have the glass with the yellow, the red stripe in the middle. She's wearing red. He's got those red sleeves. So there's,
Nothing's left to chance. Like Sean McCann's like forte, right? Or Fort, however you pronounce it. But
Forte.
This I think is actually his picture. So, everything's in there for a reason.
And just so, people know, I'm sure people do mostly, but if they don't, when you see this, a lot of these things are all imprinted on your subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind sees every element of the scene, but we talk about subliminal advertising or whatever. You have the red stripe on the box too, this, that. So there's and these elements can be traced through. So there's like a whole different film that's hidden. You can even have stuff that shows for a couple seconds. It's still going to be imprinted and may indeed have an impact, right, on the viewer's mind. And The Shining, again, this is one of those films that, it's, at least to my knowledge, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's been quite a while since many films have this kind of cultural impact and imprinting. And here's Johnny,
Right,
with Johnny Carson and all that. But people, and again,
so many elements of this film. 237's like gone over. They've talked about like the moon landing imprints. People have analyzed so much of Kubrick's work because there's a lot to take apart, much like this. So I think you're absolutely right.
Let's go to the next one.
Yeah.
So
this is something I posted. So this was kind of like the thing that kind of led me down. I wonder if there's a date on there. Yeah, see, so it just shows my research back in April of 2024. So it's kind of a timestamp of kind of when I started looking into Catcher in the Rye.
Yeah. And then again, both purportedly, both Reagan and JFK were obsessed with Catcher in the Rye as well.
Wow.
So
I have to find that. Some of these quotes, if anybody has those quotes where JFK's obsessed, Reagan's obsessed, please email it to me. Help me out. Because I want to find out if Oswald really had Catcher in the Rye and read it.
Yeah,
I couldn't validate and verify that.
I can send you the links, but I don't know what the sources are. Okay, so this is the next.
The Night Ranger lyrics. So you see Catcher in the Rye. Just like it's just I'm just trying to show the pervasive impact of these characters and people on their culture, and these are huge events. Lenin getting shot and Reagan almost dying. Huge events.
Yeah, and so, um, again, like Night Ranger. So we have our popular music icons, right? Showing freedom, showing
Yeah.
the status of a rock star, imprinting on young children or school kids. But so in the cool city, in the heat of the night, of course, heat of the night. There's multiple songs of that. Looking for adventure, like Born to Be Wild, right? Reference to that. On the face of the light, a Colorado schoolboy put his days on the lines. Days on the line, nights out of paperback, Catcher in the Rye. That almost doesn't even fit into the lyric scheme. Night Ranger, where are you going to run to now? Night Ranger, Ranger. So that's a little.
That's the name of their band too.
Yeah. It's a little bit odd lyrics because it's like Catcher in the Rye. It doesn't really fit. And just you look at the lyrical construction. Not that these guys know pentameter from a codpiece. No, but it's kind of stuck in there. But why would you want nights out of the paperback Catcher in the Rye? I don't want nights like that. That doesn't sound like a particularly. I don't want to walk around in a schizophrenic daze, like into some delusional state.
Right. What was their famous? Don't Tell Me You Love Me. I think they were famous for.
Yeah, God, Night Ranger, this 80s hair band.
Yeah, 80s hair band. Yeah.
Anyway. Let me go to the next one.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, go ahead.
So this is from Joe Atwill, his blog, Freemason in the Rye. He saw all these Freemason connections. I didn't when I did my reading, but I'll try it again. I'm not a Freemason, so I wouldn't see those things. He said he got information from somebody else, but you can check out this is from 2015. But this, I kind of took a screenshot for a couple of reasons, because this was one of the old covers, which I think at first glance doesn't have any sinister elements to it. It's just a guy walking around smoking cigarettes with ducks coming out of his head. But that's the red hunting cap he puts on to kill people. So and those are the ducks that he can't figure out what happens to him at Central Park. So like he's out of his mind. Like he's dangerous. He's actually he's a dangerous kid. Like, this is not a hero.
I mean, and that shows. See, what we're looking at is a type of serious psychic malformation. Because if you use the word digression, you see that. I mean, now there's very few birds, but I mean, there used to be a lot more birds you'd see. But you see them flying in formation, and you live in New York City, dude. Yeah. How do you not know? I mean, how do you would know that at 2 years old?
Right. That's like classic children's book stuff.
Yeah. So this is very odd, right? And I wonder if there's more to that. It's like what I mean is that sort of the torque on that impact on the reader's mind, right? There's some kind of subtleties going on.
Like here. You're not like he doesn't understand, so you don't understand. So I shoot people in the hat. That's it. If you can go back one more, just because Atwell mentions in the last sentence, he says, it is alleged that Lee Harvey Oswald had a copy in his apartment and that it was one of his favorite books, though this is disputed. So somebody, if they can validate that, please send it to me.
Yeah.
Somebody's an Oswald expert may know that.
Somehow I was thinking like the DC Sniper or something, but maybe I'm wrong, but it is really interesting because it's I could see reading a book that's really dynamic and exciting and a rich thing. I mean, Catcher in the Rye, like it's not like you know what I mean. It's not to me. It doesn't something that's going to stand up to like repeated readings, right? Just it's not that. I mean, doesn't at least for me, it doesn't have that depth. But of course, it has the depth as a programming manual. And yeah, for 60 years they've been force feeding to adolescents, and it's there is no Holden Caulfield has no redeeming qualities, and not only it's you can have a moral lesson, right, in terms for someone that's kind of messed up, but in this case the moral lesson is it's good to be a complete psycho, wacko, sexually dysfunctional and phony. I mean, I bet, I am actually intrigued to go back and really analyze the
Do it.
book
We can do
in depth.
another show. We haven't even gotten through like 10% of the stuff that I've
Okay.
put together
Should've.
because you should read it. You need to psychologically, cleanse yourself. Like it's far darker than what they're exposing to teens. Just like you said, this is terrible. There's nothing. He's a drunk. He's like break stuff. He's chain smoking. Just all of the stuff.
I mean, like even yes, when I grew up, you have your roadside porn stores, but I never went to you're going to a movie theater that shows porn. Those are they were notoriously at Times Square. These are like pickup places. There's also a lot of I mean, like for even pedophilia, this and that.
What do they call it? Cruising.
Yeah,
is what they used to call it.
and so this was it was serialized, right? Was it 1948?
I don't know.
I believe it was.
I heard there one other researcher. I did a show with Todd. What he said that he actually had, supposedly, according to rumor, he had some chapters of this book with him. Salinger did when he was in Europe for World War II. So that was like 44, supposedly.
Yeah. So no, it was. These were illegal. Known as stag films, and so this would be you're going, they'd show them privately, or any kind of movie theater showing porn is going to be very, very sketchy place where there's going to be other illegal activity going on. No question. I don't know if that's.
There are a lot of them are mob run too. Like the mob is making money off them. I think the mob financed some of those early porn movies in the 70s, is my understanding. Yeah, can you go to the next slide?
Sure.
So this is just where he says, this is a people shooting hat. I shoot people in this hat. And there's kind of elements of gun, like he fakes being shot, or he thinks he's faking being shot in one sequence. So this kind of shooting theme is there. So
Again, just to notice, you do maybe a linguistic, there's types of, linguistic analysis, like even the sentence, this is a people shooting hat. I said, I shoot people in this hat. So it's like an inversion, of the words. It kind of reminds me of Cat in the Hat, but it's a weird, people don't really talk
like that. Yeah.
You talk
He's
like
talking
that.
Talking to himself. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's, I don't know. It's talking to yourself, walking around. It's a good thing to do, right? Let's do that. All you teens. All right.
So this is the book that I read, Mind Games, The Assassination of John Lennon, where you can see a lot of stuff. I've interviewed this guy, David Whelan. He's the most recent researcher, and he does not think that Chapman shot Lennon. Somebody else did it because there was a very tight, targeted shooting pattern that an expert would have known to finish the job, which is like set 6 bullets right in a thing next to, I guess it's the left part of your heart. So the blood that flows out of your heart was destroyed. So he was dead before he hit the ground. And the body was moved. So the body of John Lennon, a lot of people don't know this, but it was he was taken into kind of a foyer outside of the gate of the Dakota, which is also weird. And Chapman was never seen in there. So Chapman, may not have done it. Chapman was doing strange things too. He was flying to New York City, hanging around and leaving. So he had been to New York City a couple of times before. I think the shooting was close to Christmas, December 1980, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, and I'm familiar with that from some time ago about the fact that, potentially, as you said, Chapman did not shoot Lennon as Sirhan Sirhan, right?
Right. I'm almost convinced Sirhan Sirhan did not kill.
Yeah. But you have your mind control patsy.
Oswald didn't shoot either. So all these people are patsies. Oswald said it himself. I'm a patsy. So I don't even think that shot was not the shot you would take. If you were an expert marksman on top of the book depository, you had a clean shot of Kennedy driving right at you. It's the easy shot. It's like a turkey shoot. Like literally you would have taken the shot when they turned left onto before going into Dealey Plaza. Instead, he waits and makes the hardest shot. And then Kennedy's head bounces in the opposite direction. It doesn't make sense. I don't even think he shot him. So,
well, yeah, I agree with you. But
I think he was supposed to be killed in the movie theater because the shot went off. Like there was an attempt to shoot Oswald in that theater because a gun went off. A lot of people don't know that. So, they had to get rid of him immediately, ASAP. And then we have the whole story about Ruby and Jolin West who shows up. There's like some hardcore there's some hardcore CIA people around Chapman.
Mhm.
Like it's the same thing, dude.
Yeah, and Lennon, just because we did that other show recently, and we talked. You mentioned that primal scream therapy. So Lennon's primal scream, right? But his handler Yoko Ono, there was an incident where he had this almost like sort of a Britney Spears style personality breakdown where he smashed all these mirrors in California. So Lennon. And Lennon has
going through it. Like their last discussion in the Playboy interview that's kind of famous, where he says the Beatles were all about doing what you will, but he also says I'm not going to work for the Carpenters anymore or something like that, like the craftsman. I don't want to be a craftsman, which is a direct tie to masonry, right? Mm-hmm. So like he's like I want out, and they put him out. They really did, yeah. So. And I've done shows on the Beatles, and just total culture creation. They're not the guys who wrote their own music. I mean, I think it's proved. I think Mike Williams, Sage of Quay proved that there's no way they wrote the songs for Revolver.
But that comes from the John Coleman, the Committee of 300 talks about Theodore Adorno. Yeah. I think that's a bit to me is a bit of a stretch if you look at Theodore Adorno. Now he was, of course, Frankfurt School, etc. But
brilliant guy, really.
Yeah, absolute genius. But he is a, you have of course like the whole Tin Pan Alley, the songwriting industry, but there, Adorno, in the 1930s, the Princeton Radio Project, who talked about how the song, again, just like this book, right, can influence the consciousness. And Lennon, he's just like, in the sense of Catcher in the Rye, this kind of meaning, all these songs, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, and, I guess, but I don't know, blah, blah,
it's weird. It's almost similar language. If you look Strawberry Fields Forever, it's almost the same kind of weird language. There's an overlap between Holden Caulfield and that. I think, but I don't know, just like you said, like those lyrics are really disturbing when you really kind of unpack them, other than the gibberish. But I think it's George Martin, and other people have come out and say they were session players on the Beatles, much like a lot of people don't know Jimmy Page, who was a well-known session player before Led Zeppelin. He was a very accomplished guitarist. So he said he played on, and there were other ones that they did it. And like there's a Quincy Jones who just passed away, who's a brilliant guy, like a great musician too. Behind Michael Jackson, brilliant singer. I mean, incredible talent. But Quincy Jones said he was at a thing and he's like, this Ringo Starr can't play any drums. This guy can't. He's a great guy. I love Ringo Starr, but this guy can't play the drums. He let him play. And he said to Ringo Starr, hey, go have some lunch and come back in an hour. We'll try to get this set done, And so Ringo went and had lunch. And while he was gone, he got some session guy who could play the drums and played the drums. And Ringo came back and that was it. That happens more than you would think. So some of those songs, Ringo's not playing the drums on those songs.
Yeah, and some have said that Paul McCartney played drums, but the thing about, Ringo's drum parts on the Beatles songs, or whoever's playing them, they're very musically intelligent, right? Mm-hmm. It's definitely, you're not looking at, Buddy Rich, Buddy, like some insane jazz drummer, but pretty. It's like someone who really knows music that doesn't necessarily have a great drum technique. But yeah, Ringo, I've heard that, many times.
The arrangement of some of those Beatles songs are off the charts.
They still, the recordings, actually, they did. I mean, if you listen to these recordings, right, still, you can hear all the way. You can even hear like the sound of the hi-hat, like really, you can hear the sound of the foot pedal, like really subtle sounds with this full spectrum range of the strings. You know what I mean? Like if you listen consciously, you can kind of zoom in, with your hearing, and it's amazing what they did with 4-track, the recording. It's some of the best recordings. I mean, in terms of actual mixing and sound quality that I think have ever been done. But I mean, not,
it's amazing stuff. There were, I mean, whoever did the work did a great job. It's George Martin. It was interesting. I saw like a picture of one of the records, you know, the phonograph records or whatever, and it didn't have the name of the band member. It had George R. Martin, composer and arranger or something like that. I'm like, where's the 4 guys who supposedly wrote it? Why aren't they on there? You know.
Of course, yeah, and he was classically trained. One of just a little aside is when, you know, they had the London Symphony and the orchestral players were like, they would see them what they're wearing, and some of the guys, they just started laughing at them and saying, "Are you guys going to a costume party?" It's like, no, we always dress like this. And you know, for the, you know, you know, traditional classical symphony players, and they see these guys, you know, with all their wacky clothing and all that. Sorry, I don't want to go too far afield from the topic here, but so we have another.
It kind of ties in because Lennon is the target of Chapman, so it's the real history of all this stuff is much more disturbing and profound and unrealized by the modern culture generally. I would say that that's true. That the tie between Catcher in the Rye, culture creation, these killers, and Lennon's death, and all these famous people's death.
Yeah, and so there's another,
and Bremer, like Bremer to Travis Bickle, and I like while I was reading this, some of these other famous anti-heroes from our past, from the, like, you know, recent cultural past came to mind. So I was thinking of Alex DeLarge from Clockwork Orange, and then Tyler Durden, and American Psycho kind of came to mind to me too, like as a Holden Caulfield-esque, because if you watch American Psycho, he is relating to certain things, like he gets really pissed off about the business card that nobody else would really care about. But also, like, it starts off with this internal dialogue that shows what he values, you know, like men's like toiletries and stuff like that, right? Right. He started every day I put on this thing and then I do this. It's his internal model. It's like he's like Holden Caulfield, like having this discussion about, you know, the importance of proper, you know, luggage. Crazy. Anyway, so some of this stuff, like this is kind of like when I did this a while back. This is the book. This is from Fenton Bresler's Murder of John Lennon. They literally have sections called Mind Control. So
this is fascinating. In fact, you know, I was thinking like the time we should, if you want to, I think we should do a part 2, because this is really fascinating. But there's a lot right on this page right here. I don't know if you want me to.
Oh well, I mean, this is just, we're just getting started because there's all kinds of stuff.
Okay,
I mean, that's fine. It's just the fact. I'll re-emphasize that my conclusion, April 2024, is that Chapman he was obsessed with Catcher in the Rye from the time of the shooting, where he went in and bought a copy and started reading the book, to his trial. So at the trial, he made these crazy statements like, oh, and here's the repetitive phrases like this. You are Holden Caulfield, you are Holden Caulfield, which you see these repetitive phrases that I mentioned at the beginning of this book, right? Where what does he say? I will, or whatever. You will. It's almost like a triggering phase in the book. So, but the reality, I'll just go back to like the Catcher in the Rye. Let me see. This is the countdown to murder the day. So let's see. Catcher was a trigger. Mark was clearly tormented, so he's kind of like Holden. He had mystery money to travel to New York. As he walked 20 blocks to the Dakota on West 72nd Street, incongruous amid the lightly dressed New Yorkers with his heavy winter gear. So he's like detached from reality. He's wearing different clothes, right? This is Chapman. He realized he was missing a prop. He had with him his double fantasy album, but something was missing. He halted his progress toward Lennon's selected place of execution and dived into a bookshop to emerge with a red paperback copy of The Catcher in the Rye. On the title page, he wrote, "To Holden Caulfield, from Holden Caulfield." And below that, "This is my statement." So the book is my statement. So that's what he wrote.
I mean,
yeah, it's just incredible stuff. So then this is like February 1st, he writes something to the New York, like 2 months later, to the New York Times in ballpoint pen. He writes this. This is Chapman. It is my sincere belief that presenting this written statement will not only stimulate the reading of J.D. Salinger's The Catcher in the Rye, but will also help many to understand what has happened. If you were able to view the actual copy of The Catcher in the Rye that was taken from me on the night of December 8th, so that was the night of the killing, you would find in it the handwritten words, "This is my statement." Unfortunately, I was unable to continue this stance, and I have since spoken openly with the police, the doctors, and others involved in this case. I now fully realize that this should not have been done, for it removed the emphasis that I wanted to place on the book. My wish is for all of you to someday read The Catcher in the Rye. All of my efforts will now be devoted towards this goal, for this extraordinary book holds many answers. My true hope is that in wanting to find these answers, you will read The Catcher in the Rye. Thank you. Mark David Chapman, The Catcher in the Rye.
That is bizarre.
It's unbelievable. So he supposedly murders Lennon, and then becomes a promoter for everybody being indoctrinated into the world of Holden Caulfield. Cannot write this stuff. This is really what happened. So then he goes into court and he says, this is it. So he's repeating these sentences and stuff like that. But he walks into court. Let's see. On Monday, 24th August 1981, Mark David Chapman, his hair close cropped from the incident when, with Craig Crimmins' help, he totally shaved his head, which is another tell, walked into Justice Edwards' court under his usual heavy armed guard. He carried with him a copy of The Catcher in the Rye. He wore dark slacks and a light blue T-shirt with no jacket. One could clearly see the bulletproof vest. So he's literally shaved his head and had a copy of The Catcher of the Rye when he went into court. What about Mark himself? He had spent several hours listening to other people talking about him. What did he have to say in his own defense? Asked if he had anything to say to the court before sentence was pronounced, Mark opened his copy of The Catcher in the Rye and read an extract to the hushed part 49. He had worked it out carefully. If you want to check it for yourself, it's to be found on page 173 of the Bantam paperback. Holden Caulfield is talking to his young sister Phoebe, the only person in the world whom he really loves, about what he wants to be when he grows up. She suggests a lawyer like their father, but Holden dismisses lawyers as phonies. What he wants to be is a catcher in the rye, and he explains what he means in this passage cited by Mark David Chapman on his day of judgment. Quote, anyway, I keep picturing all these little kids playing some game in this big field of rye and all, thousands of little kids, and nobody is around, nobody big, I mean, except me. And I'm standing on the edge of some craggy cliff. What I have to do is I have to catch everybody if they start to go over the cliff. I mean, they are running, and if they don't look where they are going, I have to come out from somewhere and catch them. That's all I'd do all day. I'd just be the catcher in the rye. And then he says, do you think anyone in the court understood what he was saying, least of all the judge? I doubt it. Nothing was going to be permitted to raise these proceedings from the level of the humdrum, just as Edwards had just said, if you received a good probation. All eyes turned to him as he now delivered judgment. So then, the judge says that he's insane. I disagree with the defense attorney's suggestion that an insane crime, the act of a person who is insane, it may well not be a crime committed for classic motives, revenge or money, but it was, as the district attorney carefully pointed out, an intentional crime. But anyway, so he literally quotes from this section, The Catcher in the Rye, right? Which is a misreading of the poem that you read earlier, right? The catcher isn't there's no catcher in the rye in the Robert Burns poem.
Yeah. Really, that's that. Of course, that's, you have the relationship with the Pied Piper, where that catcher, and leading, and then then
this is Hinckley. This is from a book about John Hinckley. Strange name, Rawhide Down, but Rendezvous with Destiny, page 23. It's the last slide that I have.
Oh, okay. I'll go through.
And it says, the 4-day trip to go kill Reagan in D.C. was a blur of fast food and brief stops. Las Vegas, Cheyenne, Chicago, Cleveland, Pittsburgh. Traveling through Utah, he awoke from a brief nap to find the bus hurtling through a massive snowstorm. He spent much of the trip slouched in a window seat, watching the scenery stream by or reading The Catcher in the Rye, G.A.D. Salinger's novel of teenage angst and alienation. It's not about that. It's much more profound. He identified with the story's main character, Holden Caulfield, but the book was also special to him because he knew that John Lennon's assassin had pulled it from his pocket and leafed through it moments after gunning down the rock and roll icon. Lennon, who had been killed 3.5 months earlier, was Hinckley's favorite musician. Even so, he sometimes felt they identified more with Lennon's killer, than with Lennon himself.
Wow.
Crazy. Yeah, it's so amazing. This is even more incredible. Like, he went to a hotel. The suitcase held some of his poems and short stories, as well as several of his favorite books. In addition to Catcher in the Rye, Hinckley had brought along a copy of Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet and a book called Strawberry Fields Forever, John Lennon Remembered. Strawberry Fields Forever is like a mind control song too, but it ties in with Catcher in the Rye because Romeo and Juliet is mentioned in Catcher in the Rye. You cannot write this stuff, man. You just can't write it.
This is it's a lot, more. I think there's we'll continue. I guess we're going to do a part 2
There's
on this. Yeah. So this is quite fascinating that the imprint of this book on culture, which again was written for adults, serialized in a one of these monthly magazines, and then became. It would be interesting to look into how did this become mandatory reading for millions and millions and millions of high school kids,
impressionable kids, told to read it. Like, that's you do what you're told. Like if somebody said you got to read this book, I'd be like, well, maybe not. But back then, you didn't have a choice. Impressionable, suggestible children. It's a dark book. Maybe we can finish it out if you pull up this chapter 27, which is about Chapman. And Jared Leto plays Chapman. And
let's play that. The video clip.
Just bring that up. Yeah, at the very beginning of it, he's quoting from the book. You should be able to hear him quote from the book, and he has the Catcher in the Rye.
So what is this from, by the way?
It's from a movie called Chapter 27.
Oh, Chapter 27.
It came out in 2007, and it's about Chapman in New York City. But the intro, it shows whoever wrote this book or directed it has a sophisticated understanding of Chapman and Catcher in the Rye, because the Chapman character will quote directly from Catcher in the Rye here in just a few minutes.
Okay, here we go.
And the book, and what it was saying to a lost generation of phony people.
We have arrested Mark David Chapman of 55 South Kukui, Kukui Street, Hawaii, for the homicide of John Lennon.
If you want to know, if you really want me to tell you about it, I will. But the first thing you probably want to know is all that stuff about my dad and what he did to my mom and me and all. The whole goddamn childhood. But I'm not gonna tell you any of that stuff. That stuff isn't important. Not anymore.
The Rye, right? So
Yep.
there's 26 chapters in Catcher in the Rye.
Chapter 7. There you go.
He quotes, maybe, I don't know how long these intros, but he's about to drive into New York and quote Catcher in the Rye here.
Okay,
I don't have the timing right. So.
Oh, that's right. This is just like opening credits, but they are showing
there's the ducks.
Ducks.
So all these themes. So the themes we've talked about. Where do the ducks go? The Rye, the book. Come on.
So this movie what's the premise of the movie?
You can
about?
find it on YouTube. I didn't watch all of this. So there's the carousel, right? So all these
the carousel.
Carousel at the end. It's about Chapman.
Wait, it's a reenactment, right? With archival footage, Inspired by the book, Let Me Take You Down.
So he's flying to New York.
Okay.
There's the 26th chapter. That was what I read to you from about what I don't know what I think about this, right? I told my brother, what do I think? I don't know what I think.
I'm just gonna tell you about what happened to me right around last Christmas. Those 3 days in New York City. Hey, listen. You know those ducks? The ones in Central Park?
Huh?
The ducks. The ones that swim around that lake in Central Park. Do you know it?
You want to go there?
No. Oh, yeah, maybe I will. It's just in the winter. When the lake freezes, where do they go?
What are you saying?
What happens to them? To the ducks, where do they go? Where are they now?
You gotta be kidding me, right? You gotta be. Asking me about the ducks. All right, buddy, so where do you want me to take you? For real.
J.P. Schaefer, I don't know who that is. Anyway, that's it. We can stop it there. But it's just interesting that he's quoting from that thing that's a central component of this book is like, where do the ducks go? Holden doesn't know. Like crazy. Anyway.
Yeah.
I've been sitting still for 90 minutes.
Yep. So, well, hey, William, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. And would you like to just give some details where people can find your work or contact you or
Sure.
stalk you with a copy of Catcher in the Rye? I'm just kidding.
Really. Be careful reading this book. I said a joke. I said a joke on my social media. Like, I am going to read this book. I'm hopefully the same person when I'm done reading this book. If I do anything strange, it really wasn't the real me. But yeah, all my shows are at William Ramsey Investigates. It's the top 0.5 shows in the world podcasting. And you can also find me on Twitter. I post a lot on Twitter or X. And I have 5 books that are on Amazon. And you can see my 5 documentaries at my Patreon page, William Ramsey Investigates. And thanks for having me. It's great to be with you again. It's always great to talk with you. Like your frame of reference, like is incredible. So it's good to be back with you. Yeah,
thanks, William. And this is one of those things I've thought about a little bit, but I didn't even have time to reread the book. But it's I'm going to enjoy reading it before we do the part 2 and just see the juxtaposition. The impacts. But I remember when I read, high school. But I it's one of those things where you got to read it. I did feel like it had some impact on me at that time. I'm not quite sure what it was, but then, to see, like my son he actually got one of those hats. I said, get rid of that thing, man.
Wow.
I said, he's like, oh, it's a great book. It's literature. I said, no, I kind of got it, but reading it again, this is tying generations together, but in what way? And again, like who, this is not accidental. Somebody very high up in the Department of Education stipulated for, thousands, tens of thousands of school districts to mandate this book.
17 million books sold. It's its own industry. It's incredible. It's an incredible amount of money. I mean, even $10 a book, like it's $100 million of it sold, distributed. Like it's got to be culture creation, don't you think? Like,
oh, no question. I mean, because Salinger. We'll just close with this here, actually. And anybody's listening, hansletter.com. If anybody's in Columbus, Ohio, which I don't know if I'll get this posted in time. I'm playing from 7 to 11 at 6th Avenue Grill in Columbus, Ohio, off of 161. But that's let's see if I can get this posted before I have to go. But this, again, Salinger, we'll delve into Salinger's background and some very interesting things about him, but he was intelligence and he was not, if somebody is a committed author, it's not like he wrote the Odyssey, or wrote like, War and Peace, or wrote like, Crime and Punishment, or, whatever. He just wrote these thin little paperbacks, and he wrote basically nothing, and he just stopped writing. You know what I mean? So, but yet he didn't really, well, we'll leave it there because I don't want to get into too much, but I think there's evidence, and I'll look forward to doing an analysis of this, that this is indeed may have had more than one author, or in terms of technical advisors, if it is, as sort of we are sort of speculating or alluding to, that this is not just a normal fictional work, but it has lots of different avenues of psychological programming, much that are far below the surface of just being an obnoxious adolescent walking around smoking cigarettes.
Indeed. Well said. Very well said.
All right, William. Well, I will catch you next time.
All right, cool.
Okay.